Now, first things first, is there anyone in a hurry back to the city? We're due back for 5:30, it could be 6:30, we take our time. Is that alright? There's no rush, okay? We take our time, get most things in. We get everything in actually if it's a good day. First things first, this church here on your right hand side is now a tourist office. It's called St. Andrew's Church, and like a lot of churches here in the city centre, it has changed its usage. Some of them are pubs, some of them are shops, some of them are restaurants. This one here is a tourist office, because in olden times the Protestant churches and Anglican churches here were subsidised. They were a thing called tithes, where you paid 10% of your income to the state church. Now 90% of the population here is Roman Catholic, so those laws were abolished. The churches are into financial difficulties, they have to change their usage. Now everybody in Ireland speaks English, but only about 20% of the population speak Irish fluently. Now everybody learns Irish at school from the age of 5 to 18, but like most things that are compulsory for children, they don't particularly like it. And if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And we don't really use it that often, but we like it ourselves. Because we can talk about you and you don't know what we're talking about. But we are very proud of the language. Now, do we have any students on the bus? Yes? Okay. They have an exam at the end of the day, alright? Everybody else can relax. They've got the exam. All this part of the city here on your right hand side is called the Temple Bar area. You get this name because a man called Sir William Temple had a large house and gardens here near the bar part of the river, spelled B-A-R-R, the sandbank of the river. Nothing to do with bars and lounges here, okay? But it has become a very trendy place out of it. Now on our left hand side here at the lights, if you look to your left you'll see an archway. That takes you into Dublin Castle, the seat of British power here for over 700 years. Well worth a visit to walk around there. There's a place called the Chester Beatty Library. He's an American who adopted Ireland as his home and became the first honorary Irish citizen, and he has a museum there. It's called a library, but it's more like a museum. It's free to go around, well worth a visit. It's one of the highlights of your tour here, I'd say. Now the building on your left hand side, this white building, is called the City Hall. It was originally built in 1769 as a royal exchange. Then it became a prison, but now it's used by the Lord Mayor of the city to run the city. And upstairs is working in to see the dome and the murals on the wall, well worth a visit. You'll see 3 castles on the pillars here. That is the symbol of Dublin, the crest of arms, 3 castles. And the castles are on fire is to show the resilience of Dublin for being attacked. You also understand that Dublin was not founded by the Irish. Dublin was founded by the Vikings first, and then afterwards the Normans, which were Anglo-Normans, and the Irish were kept out of the city. And its motto is, "Happy is the city where citizens obey." Now I can assure you we do not obey here too often. We're always in rebellion. Now on the right hand side here, a smaller street called Fish Amble Street is where Handel first performed as Messiah here in Dublin in 1742, just down there on the right. But the main church here on your right hand side is called Christ Church Cathedral. And it was always a church here for the Viking times around 1030, but this one here, the stone structure was built by the Normans when they came to Ireland. And the most famous Norman associated with the building is a man called Richard the Clerk. He's better known to his friends and enemies as Strongbow. He's buried in the crypt there. And also the Bishop of Dublin at the time was a man called St. Lawrence O'Toole. He's buried there, his heart is buried there. So that was built in around 1170 to 1220. Now the reason why it's in such good condition is to do with drink, as usual in Ireland. It's to do with a man called Henry Rowe. He was a whiskey distiller, and he spent a fortune in the 1860s renovating the building. He went bust doing so. He spent roughly about 30 million in modern day terms. Now all the buildings on your left hand side here, these red brick buildings, are called the Ivy Trust buildings. And the reason why they're called the Ivy Trust is Lord Ivy, this was all a slum area. This part of the city is known as the Liberties. It was outside the wall part of the city. It was the poorest part of the city. And in the 1900s he knocked down all the slums here and renovated the whole area. Now Lord Ivy is one of the Guinness family. His name was Edward Guinness. Did a lot of great works around the city here, the Guinness family. They're very, very popular people. Now the church on your left hand side here is the largest church in Ireland. It's called St. Patrick's Cathedral. It gets its name because St. Patrick baptised the early Christians here in a well, and he gave the name to the structure here. Now this one was built shortly after Christ Church, and the most famous person associated with a man called Jonathan Swift. Anyone ever heard of Jonathan Swift? He wrote Gulliver's Travels. We also know the name Drapier, and he wrote seditious letters against the state. He's a great champion of the poor. Now the Guinness family renovated this church. It was in decline, and a man called Sir Benjamin Guinness renovated it. Now, he did that in the 1880s. Now he didn't go bust doing so, because the Guinness family are very, very wealthy. The reason why they're very wealthy was they were very successful entrepreneurs, but in those times when they were successful, there was no income tax, so they retained most of their money. Anyone ever heard of Oliver Cromwell? Yeah. Oliver Cromwell is seen as a hero in England. He brought parliamentary rule there and he executed the king, Charles I. But he used that church there as a stable for his horses when he came to Ireland. Now we're on the south side of the city. The city is divided by the river Liffey. Northsiders and Southsiders have great rivalry. Now they say the more affluent and wealthy live on the south side, but the real Dublin people live on the north side of the city. So you know what side of the city I'm from.